Hi, welcome to Roy's Book Reviews. This is the first video that I am filming in the year 2024. Happy New Year. I hope your year is off to a fine start with some excellent books. In this video, I am going to discuss several books rather than a single one. It's going to be a compilation. I have done that a few times in the past here. A lot of times when I do a compilation video rather than discussing a single title, it's because the reviews that I wrote for them on Goodreads were on the short side, and since my videos are largely comprised of me reading from what I wrote about these books at Goodreads, they're not long enough to create a video that's, at least 7 or 8 minutes long at minimum. In the last few years, since I've been doing these booktube videos here, I can't believe it's 4 years since I first started this channel. I have made a conscious effort to write longer reviews so that, a single one is long enough to make a video for it. But in the past, in my older reviews, a lot of them were only a few sentences long, not enough to bother filming myself talking about. The first book that I am going to talk about is the last book that I completed, so it is not an older book to me. However, I wrote a rather brief review of it, largely because of the nature of the book. I felt that in order to go in depth about what I felt about it, it would be virtually impossible for me to stray into spoiler territory, and that is not something that I do here. My goal is not to give away any twists and turns and lessons learned and all of that about the books I've read before you've had the opportunity to read them and, find out for yourself. I want to give you an idea of what the books are about and, how good I thought they were, and sometimes I go pretty deeply into the plots, and sometimes I just kind of talk about the themes addressed rather than the beginning, middle, end plot points. The book I am going to talk about first here, I'm going to talk about a total of 5, is Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. Never Let Me Go is a book that I can speak about at length, but not really without telling you more than I want to reveal. This is not a novel with a surprise twist ending. Rather, it's a story that reveals secrecy in incremental degrees. Little by little, we find out what the protagonist knows and does not know about her circumstances and destiny. Incidents that do not seem particularly monumental to us are revealed as she reflects on her memories, with their importance not to be understood by the reader until later on. By the time we figured out what's going on, we are invested in the lives of the central characters. Once invested, it's human nature to root for some version of a happy ending. Our best wishes are the result of our humanity. I suppose that the nature of humanity is what the beautiful novel Never Let Me Go is ultimately about. Above all else, what we tend to never let go of until it's pulled from our grasp is hope. Without hope, what are we and why are we here? So that doesn't tell you a whole lot about the plot. I will just say that the setting is a boarding school where the kids are, let's say, start off kind of middle school age, and then follows them as they go into the high school years, and become young adults. And that's as much as I am going to tell you, because to go any further would be to reveal things that are best revealed by the author. The next book I am going to talk to you about is The Lincoln Conspiracy, which I read way back in 2013. Since I'm a sucker for historical fiction, particularly when the setting is one I'm familiar with, especially when a fictional conspiracy theory is involved regarding events that really happened, makes me quick to pick a book up. The Lincoln Conspiracy contains all of these elements, as it takes place in Washington, D.C., shortly after the assassination of President Lincoln. John Wilkes Booth is the killer, but was he a lone zealot or acting on behalf of others? Timothy O'Brien asks these questions and makes up an answer for us. On the chase is a cop named Temple, who walks with a limp that he turns to his advantage by making convenient use of his cane as a weapon on multiple occasions. Abe's wife, Mary Todd, has a cameo, and one of their sons plays a role in the plot as well. Sojourner Truth is also put to use. But celebrity cameos aside, The Lincoln Conspiracy is basically a cop story with horse chases in place of car chases. Temple finds himself thrust into the middle of a grand-scale mystery and is determined to follow through to its resolution, no matter how much opposition is thrown at him. Will he get his man? What do you think? Since the official story we all know, in 2013 and now in 2024, is that Booth acted alone. Presumably, Temple is not able to prove and expose what he learns. This book makes for breezy reading that you'll zip through from beginning to end. Thanks to the well-received movie Lincoln, that it came out back in 2013 or around then, Abraham Lincoln was a hot topic at the time that I read this book, and perhaps helped the sales of this novel. I've read better in the genre, and I've read worse. But I think Tim O'Brien did a pretty good job of visualizing the setting, and I would recommend this book. Not as highly as I would recommend the first book that I discovered, Never Let Me Go, which I would say is a must-read category. The next book, also not quite as good as Never Let Me Go, but pretty good, is How the Garcia Girls Lost Their Accents by Julia Alvarez. How the Garcia Girls Lost Their Accent is a beautifully written book, but it's one of those works of fiction that isn't really about anything in particular. Readers spend time with alternating Garcia girls in random order throughout a portion of their lives. There is no plot to speak of. The chapters are connected by the fact that one or more Garcia girl is featured in each of them. But you could read them in any order you wanted without impacting the reading experience. The chapters / scenes hold your attention in standalone fashion, as well as loosely connecting with the others. I didn't grow attached to anyone in particular. I cared about what was happening when it was happening, and then the book moved on to something else. How the Garcia Girls Lost Their Accents is a well-written series of scattered moments in the lives of girls who become women, who become the memory of a book you once read. So that's what I have to say about that book. The next one, another one written by a woman, is Labyrinth by Kate Mosse. I can never read too many Grail Quest yarns, and that's what Labyrinth is. Labyrinth did not have quite as infectious a pace as the Da Vinci Code, which is probably my favorite novel in that particular genre, trope, whatever you want to call it. The style of prose ventures closer to literary than Dan Brown's strictly commercial blockbuster. Labyrinth also had me struggling to remember my high school and freshman year of college French lessons, for whatever that's worth. The narrative provides readers with two stories to follow, somewhat similar to another Knights Templar Grail quest book that I read, The Templar Salvation by Raymond Corey. One of the plot lines is taking place in the present and the other in the distant past, the two racing to reach a point where they will merge. There are a considerable number of characters to keep track of, perhaps a couple too many for my taste, with prime spots going to women. So I suppose this is the most feminist of the Grail Chase books that I've read to date. It won't be the last, as I simply cannot get enough of them. And I may return to the fiction of Kate Mosse someday, because even though this novel didn't quite wow me, it was crafted well enough to have me hooked on till the end. The last book I am going to talk about is one by an author you know very well, the one and only Stephen King. This book is entitled Dr. Sleep, and it is the sequel to his masterpiece, The Shining. About it, back in 2000, I wrote that Stephen King hasn't lost a step. A major key to his success is that if you strip away all of the spooky supernatural stuff, you'll find well-developed characters who are easy to relate to, expert pacing, and no shortage of intriguing background stories and subplots. The inhuman demons who torment his protagonists may be what King's faithful readers come for, but the terror only works if those being terrorized are likable and their behavior plausible. That's why it's easy enough for King to take breathers from the creepy and crawly to pen equally engaging stories set completely in our real world. But when he's ready to return to the darkness that resides in his mind, nobody does it better, and nobody can keep up with his dizzying pace. Dr. Sleep is a worthy follow-up to the magnificent The Shining. They made a movie of Dr. Sleep, which I think I DVR'd at some point, but I have not gotten around to watching yet. They also made a movie out of Never Let Me Go. I'm not sure if there is a movie of Labyrinth, or how the Garcia girls lost their accents, or the Lincoln Conspiracy. Perhaps, perhaps not, who knows? The Lincoln Conspiracy is one I could certainly see being made into a film. That is pretty much everything that I have to say about these books. I recommend each of them to varying degrees. Never Let Me Go is definitely my favorite of them. If you like a good genre read, a lot of action, suspense, go with the Lincoln Conspiracy or with Labyrinth. If you are a horror junkie, if you are a Stephen King fan, Dr. Sleep, be a good book for you, particularly if you've already read The Shining. And if you want to read something more on the literary side, if you had your fill of, Caucasian writers and want to read something from a Spanish author, then go with Julia Alvarez and How the Garcia Girls Lost Their Accents. Until next time, this is Roy wishing you happy reading.